As part of President Trump's whirlwind diplomatic tour to the Middle East, he spoke to Israel's Knesset. Now, despite the fact that this is a U.S. brokered and backed peace plan and hostage release, protesters disrupted President Trump's speech and made their displeasure known. You'd think that they'd be happy and that this would be a day of celebrating, but I guess Trump derangement syndrome trumps all. Take a look.
להוציא אותו מהאולם. להוציא אותו מיד, החוצה, החוצה.
Please expel this Knesset member. Please expel this Knesset member.
להוציא גם את חבר הכנסת כסיף. להוציא את חבר הכנסת כסיף מהאולם.
Expel Knesset member Kasif out of the hall. Please expel him immediately.
Sorry for that, Mr. President.
That was very efficient. So back to Steve.
You gotta love that even in an awkward and tense moment like that, President Trump is able to break the tension, break the ice, and use humor, which, he's just naturally gifted at, to bring the crowd, bring the room back to his side. I think most public speakers, especially politicians who are used to relying on a teleprompter, right, they wouldn't know how to handle that situation. They probably would attempt to just get right back on script, and that would feel awkward for everyone. But instead, President Trump is able to read the room, react to the room, and improvise an ad-lib on the spot, and that's part of what makes him such a compelling public speaker. One of the other times that he actually veered off script was when he started talking about a pardon for Benjamin Netanyahu.
And right here. Hey, I have an idea. Mr. President, why don't you give him a pardon? Give him a pardon. Come on.
This moment ended up lasting over a minute and a half more after that clip ended right there. But even though, Netanyahu is polarizing and divisive around the world, and even here in America, you can see there that that was one of the strongest applause lines that President Trump got in his speech. So Netanyahu obviously has strong approval within the members of the Knesset, or at least the ones who were present. And so that leads to the question of the day. What do you think? Do you think Netanyahu should be pardoned, or do you believe, as many people do, that he's guilty of war crimes? Let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments below. Obviously, President Trump is using his influence and putting his weight behind making sure Netanyahu gets pardoned, but we'll see what comes of that. Now, look, President Trump's speeches are often derided by the left, the politician, the Democrats, the mainstream media. They always criticize him. One of the things I remember most is when Nancy Pelosi, tore up his State of the Union. Well, many people, even on the left side of the aisle, are calling President Trump's speech to the Knesset today one of the most powerful speeches he's ever given, one of his best speeches. In fact, a lifelong Democrat from New York, immediately after the speech, called into C-SPAN and actually broke into tears while he was calling in, talking about President Trump's historic speech in Israel.
Democrat, good morning. What'd you think of the speech?
Yes, hi. That was I'm going to get choked up. A momentous speech. And I'm a conservative Democrat living here in New York, where this example of bringing peace to everyone should be thought of in New York City, where out of ignorance, the people are about to elect a guy who's pro-terrorist, pro-Hamas, who's friends with his people in Uganda, a country that lawfully executes people for being gay. And this should be a wake-up call to everyone, that people can live together. I go back, I worked as a young man for Humphrey and for McGovern, and became more conservative as I've gotten older. But this was like the best. You know, he does it in his own style. We actually live pretty close to where he grew up. And, you know, New Yorkers like Bernie Sanders are sort of different. They're funny. They're abrasive sometimes. But there should be a lesson to all of us that we can all live together. I think the future, if the Gazans really accept the goodness and the money that's going to come from the Arab community and from the world community, it can be a different world. And I'm sorry for being so emotional, but it's a great moment in history for everyone. And we have to reject hate. We have to reject Antifa. We have to reject Mandami. And we have to come together as human beings. I'm an old guy. Life is short. And we should live it with love. All right, thank you.
And if you had C-SPAN on, it was call after call just like that, not just Republicans, but many lifelong Democrats. And I think that's really moving. And I think part of the reason why that's so touching, especially coming from the Democrats, these are people who obviously, in most cases, have been conditioned to hate and reject President Trump, to just have that knee-jerk reaction right off the bat. So to see them just even being able to acknowledge and see with their own two eyes, hey, he might not be the norm. It might not be what I thought of as presidential. As you heard there, he said President Trump does it in his own style, but you can't deny the results that we're seeing as part of all of this. One of my favorite moments from today was actually after President Trump spoke at the Knesset. And, you know, they gave a speech. There were world leaders, many from Europe, many from Egypt, that were there. And, you know, they signed the deal and they took photos. Well, there was a hot mic moment between President Trump and one of the politicians from Canada. I'll just leave it at that, and you can draw your own conclusions here. Again, President Trump, just a master of humor.
So you going back?
No, I'll go back. I'm glad you upgraded me to president.
Oh, did I say? Great stuff.
It's good. I started.
He said he
Great
stuff. That was great.
In case you didn't hear it, because again, it was a hot mic, so the audio quality wasn't the best. The guy said, "Thank you for upgrading me to president," because President Trump accidentally referred to him as president. Then President Trump, you know, jokingly smacks him. "At least I didn't call you governor." Obviously, another joke about Canada becoming the 51st state. Well, again, giving credit where credit is due. Look, so I have my TV here, and they can, you know, I don't know if you guys have this feature. It's one of my favorite features, but you can actually play 2 different channels, or up to 3, I guess, at the same time. And so it's really cool. Like on breaking news days like this, I like to put on like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, just to see, you know, in real time what they're all talking about. Well, CNN, believe it or not, I believe has actually been playing today really fair, especially compared to NBC. Now, before we get to NBC, I'm going to show you just the admission on CNN. It must have killed them to have to report this on air.
And welcome back to CNN's breaking news coverage, as we are covering a historic moment here in Israel, because for the first time in 2 years, over 2 years, 738 days, Hamas holds no living hostages in its captivity for the first time.
Yeah, I thought they've been playing this really fair. On NBC, they dedicated an entire segment talking about, you know, just how war-ravaged Gaza is, and they really were playing to the emotions that, you know, Israel's been committing a genocide, and look at all of these dead children, and yada, yada, yada. Basically repeating all of the propaganda that's come from Gaza's Ministry of Health, and, you know, just leaving out a ton of the facts. And on a day like today, you would think that the story, the victory, the focus would be on the hostages coming home and this peace deal, but instead it was talking about the land that was stolen from the Palestinians. Not a good look, NBC. And so that's why I did want to at least give credit to CNN. And it's not just CNN. Many Democrats, believe it or not, have actually been speaking out. And I don't mean just normal Democrats, but Democrat politicians, so at least leadership. Now, no leaders, like high party leadership like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, have actually spoken about this yet. That might change by the time this video goes live. But, you know, normal representatives and the lower tier, like D-listers, have been at least able to say the truth. One of those people outside of Washington, D.C., singing President Trump's praises and actually being able to admit that he's doing stuff right is Bill Maher.
I always say this: you cannot ever deny success. You just have to give your respect, even if it's not your thing. Don't have the humility to give it up for enormous success on any level.
I agree.
Trump, not my choice, didn't vote for him, but somehow,
a lot of people did.
And he's, I can't deny the success.
I can't either.
Yeah.
And he's the president.
And he's the president.
And then even last night, before the hostages were released, Stephen A. Smith went on Fox News, and he just talked about all of the peace agreements that President Trump has been able to get done. And guess what? His first year in office isn't even finished yet. The Democrats were so sure that President Trump was going to cause World War III. And let's not forget, back in 2016, when he ran for the first time, right? They laughed at him. They said, oh, you have no experience. Oh, what are you going to do about foreign policy? And then when President Trump started staffing his administration with people like Witkoff, or the first time with Jared Kushner, and from what I understand, Kushner has gotten involved again behind the scenes. The left was so sure that President Trump was going to beclown himself, but instead he's run laps around him, and I believe that's part of the reason why they're so upset and why they can't let go, because they're just holding on to this grudge and this hatred and, the humiliation that they must feel deep down that President Trump has exposed them for who they really are. But hey, at least people like Stephen A. Smith are, again, giving credit where credit is due. They're just able to acknowledge that maybe President Trump isn't as bad and evil as they claim he is.
There is no doubt that he has done more than practically almost any administration has tried to do when it comes to ending conflicts around the world. And he's put himself in a position where the political capital that he stands to gain isn't necessarily that great. So his willingness to do so is obviously something that shouldn't be ignored and something that should be, dare I say, applauded to some degree. Again, that doesn't mean I like everything he does. You and I can argue back and forth about a few things. But in the end, you are absolutely right when you point out that there's not much to gain for him in a lot of this, yet he engages anyway, and you have to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, there was a video that actually went viral this weekend from, I believe it's President Trump's granddaughter. They were on the golf course, and she was saying, hey, you've become president. Do you have any other dreams left? Because President Trump is getting older, and he's accomplished a lot in his life. And she's just like, hey, are you just going to sit back now? You've accomplished all your dreams, or do you have any more? And President Trump, I don't think he knew he was being filmed, because she put her phone off to the side on the golf cart. But President Trump's talking to her, and he's like, you dream big, you accomplish your dreams. I became president, and now my dream's to become a great president. And I think, that's sort of tapping into what Stephen A. Smith is saying there, where he's trying to basically build up a legacy that he's going to be able to leave behind, not just for himself, but for the country. Well, words from Alyssa Farrah, who is a co-host on ABC's The View, have come back to haunt her, especially now that the hostages have been released. But before we get into that, I would like to thank the Governor's Club, members of today's Governor's Club. They are Rice and Spice, Houston Sammy Girl, Ali Savarino, and Jeremy 2001 Happy. ×2, these are people who give tips and super thanks to the channel. I am so glad that you're here. Well, way back last year, December of last year, when they were talking about the possibility of President Trump actually being able to broker a peace deal and get hostages released back home, Alyssa Farrah said, well, if President Trump is actually able to do that, then I will do something else. I will eat my own words. Well, now she has to eat her own words. Is she going to follow through on this bet, this promise that she made?
If he does good, if he gets the Israeli hostages out, I promise I will wear a MAGA hat for one day on the show and say, thank you for doing it. Yeah. She'll knock it right off my head. But
for reference, she has not worn a red MAGA hat yet. So if anyone has the View's address, I think perhaps we should all start a campaign to start mailing the MAGA hats until she wears one for an entire episode. One final clip today, going back to President Trump's speech in front of the Knesset. He actually spoke, a lot of people, obviously President Trump's leadership vision and commitment to this deserves, the respect and the praise that it's getting. But it's not just him. It is truly a team effort. And one of the largest leaders in all of this is Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And President Trump gave him the recognition that he deserved.
And I have a prediction that Marco will go down, I mean this, as the greatest Secretary of State in the history of the United States. I believe that. I believe it. And he and I, we really fought it out. You remember, he was tough. He was nasty. Who the hell thought this was going to happen, Marco, right? And now I'm saying he's going to go down as the greatest. He will. He was always smart and sharp, and people respect him.
And that's why I say, look, 2028 isn't set in stone. I don't think it is in the bag for any particular candidate. I know a lot of people already really want J.D. Vance, but look, I think it's a really deep bench of talent, and I think you take a look at J.D. Vance's performance there. If there is a strong, robust primary in the Republican side in 2028, I personally don't think it'll be divisive. I think it'll be unifying, and I think it'll be invigorating to see the deep bench of talent and to really let the best rise to the very top. So, I personally don't think it's set in stone. Like, if both J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio ran, I truly don't know who I would vote for, because I think they're both great, strong candidates, and obviously there are so many others who could potentially throw their names into the ring. As always, though, all of that is just my analysis and commentary. That is what's happening in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So again, in front of the Knesset, President Trump talked about, encourage the president of Israel to pardon Benjamin Netanyahu. Do you agree with President Trump's urging, or are you on, anti-Netanyahu? I guess I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts down in the comments below. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.